Sigurd Olson wrote that the key to staying enthused about our work and for remaining forever young is wonderment. So let me take you on a trip through Yellowstone. It's a very quick trip, and remember and refresh the sense of wonder you have in your own work. This year when I went with my mother was surely different than in 1991 when I slept in a tent. We warmed up Pop-Tarts over the truck defroster, and we hiked on trails. This time we slept in real beds in a cabin. The other difference is that I had made an academic assault on Yellowstone during the wonder years, I'll call them, as in I wonder how many ways I can study the place from 1,400 miles away. I cared more about the subject than I did about the tools, drove my graduate advisor crazy, and it wasn't the most successful graduate program, but it was successfully wonderful. I had some concerns about this year's trip. After all this vast research I'd done, would it be the same as I remembered in 91? Wildlife and amazing scenery everywhere. In short, I wondered if I'd still wonder. Like any good trained scientist, I checked the data, my pictures from the last vacation. About half the data were lost through a sad series of events, but I still had enough to draw conclusions. Plenty of wildlife and lots of great scenery. During this year's trip, I didn't analyze the data along the way. I simply felt it. Virtually the same week as before, but less wildlife. I wondered what had happened. As a learned scientist, I concluded that the wolves must be affecting the wildlife populations. But there was still wonder of flowing water, plenty of beautiful, clear, bright blue water. I loved to listen to the sound of it rushing over the rocks. Time and wolves wouldn't change that. I also didn't really remember enormous Yellowstone Lake from before, but I sure felt the wonder of it on this particular day. The strong winds were blowing up huge ocean-like waves. And then there was the wonderful and smelly thermal features that were still there. Roaring Mountain, you could certainly hear why they gave it that name. Celestine Spring, the artist's paint pots, and of course, Old Faithful. I had told my mother we wouldn't be out after dark, but when I start wildlife watching, I just can't help myself. So a drive through the Lamar Valley rewarded us with a sunset of colors that were made even more wonderful by the smoky haze from fires. Got to have some of these pictures. The drive through Specimen Ridge and the Lamar Valley was well worth it. I've seen a lot of bison in South Dakota, but I'd never seen courtship behavior like this before. I'd wondered how the herd was faring, the last free-ranging herd in the U.S. Because of the brucellosis issue, I thought their populations might be down and we wouldn't see very many, but we did. They often were just walking down the road. We didn't see as many elk as I expected either. Must have been those wolves, huh? But we were in the right place at the right time for this one, and I saw the wonder on my mother's face. For all the elk we'd seen in Colorado, she'd never once heard one bugling. By now you must be thinking, did they ever see the wolves? Well, we did, and you can too if you look in the red ovals really carefully and use your imagination. We saw them clearly through spotting scopes that were set up in the prime viewing locations, and I did my best to capture them in photos, but not very successfully. But wonder no more, I really did see them with my own eyes. And then I found wonder in the comparisons, like these colorful features at Mammoth Hot Springs, formed by those strange heat-loving thermophiles. They reminded me of the marshmallows on the candied yams at Thanksgiving. And the intriguing Orange Spring Mound, which is shaped by very slow water flow that deposits calcium carbonate or travertine as it flows. It reminded me of what else? The shape of a bison. But the real test of wonder is this. Can I see something from Artist Point that is different from what millions of other tourists have photographed here, the lower falls of the Yellowstone River? Yes, I can do that. By turning around, I took my own perspective on this well-worn location, and maybe I noticed something magnificent that no one else had, at least not on this same evening. The rosy hues of the canyon walls, the golden sunset reflecting off the tree-studded mountains, and most important of all, the wonder